Hey, welcome to the big show. As you can tell, I am not Marty. Al Robinson, the man behind Hat City Blog, the man who puts fear into the hearts of Republicans. Welcome to another edition of the big show. This is 2 weeks to go until the election, and we got tons of stuff we can talk about in terms of politics, because after the elections are over, thank God we don't have to talk about politics for a while. But until then, we have some debates we want to show you. We were going to show you a best-of show. We were going to give you a best-of show, which with some best-of clips of like State Senator Tony Boucher, John Hartwell, some Jason Bartlett, some Tom Foley. But most of that stuff we already played once before. So what I like to do, and one of the things I like to do the most is bring back footage from debates, because it's one thing just to see some person up here talking, I guess, just doing talking points and boilerplate stuff. It's another thing to see two people engaged in a debate, speaking on the issues, rebutting, responding to each other's comments. The League of Women Voters does an excellent job in doing debates in this area, and I had the opportunity to go to several of their debates. In fact, there's two very important debates coming up this coming weekend. Actually, one on Sunday, the other one's going to be on Monday. On Sunday at the Wilton High School, Congressman Jim Himes will be debating Dan DiVasella. And on Monday evening at the Portuguese Center here in Danbury, Chris Murphy will be debating Sam Caligiuri. Now, later on in the show, I'll bring you more specific information in terms of times and what best time to get there, and the website information and all that. But the cool thing is that I'm going to be personally video streaming both of these debates for my website, Hat City Blog, and also for the Danbury News Times website. So you will be able to see your congressional candidates engaging in debate, hopefully a friendly, professional debate. Nothing will get ugly, but it will be there for you to view, and because we want to bring you as much information about these candidates as possible, because one of my big things is that I don't like low information voters. I want you to be as informed as possible before going in there and pulling that lever. Don't listen to the talking points, don't listen to the boilerplate, don't listen to the stuff from the far left or from the far right. Study these candidates. See them face to face. See them engage in debate, and judge for yourselves who you trust the most, or who you believe in the most. Because it's one thing to sit here on a stage and just ramble away, but it's another thing to be engaged in a debate and hear what these guys are talking about and see if they're telling the truth or not. Because again, if you don't vote, you have no say-so whatsoever in terms of like making an argument or anything. So it's better to be very informed and make an informed decision than to make a low information or dumb decision. So without further ado, David Straight, the man right here. I heard you got some goodies that you went to in terms of deer population, which is near and dear to your heart, dealing with the DEP. Why don't we just run right into that, because I know after the election, that's going to be one of the hot topics that we should be talking. In fact, I've been talking about deer population in Lyme disease in this area, especially in Reading, parts of Bethel. I had a friend of mine who got Lyme disease in Danbury. I lived in Newtown for a period of time. I know about Lyme disease and deer population. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, no, it sure is. Anyway, thanks. Great introduction there, Al. Yeah. You hold your own well. I found something to agree and something to disagree with you. I agree we shouldn't listen to the far left, but I disagree that we shouldn't listen to the far right.
Well, of course. I wonder why.
Anyway, we've talked about it before. I've been real involved with the Fairfield County Municipal Deer and Management Alliance.
Right.
And that's an organization of appointed volunteers that represent 19 of the 23 towns in Fairfield County. And we hosted a meeting yesterday in Reading, Connecticut at the town hall. And we invited the DEP to come in, and we wanted to say, look, folks, DEP, you've done a great job protecting deer and allowing deer numbers to explode.
Right.
Now it's really up to you guys to get these numbers down, because we've got a major health crisis here.
Right.
And there were roughly four protesters that showed up, and they held up their little signs, and they tried to, make an event and called the media and tried to create a stir. Well, an 85-year-old man was walking towards the building, and he has a hearing aid and he has a heart condition. So he's 85 years old. And one of the protesters walked in front of him and stuck a sign in his face. And that gentleman raised his arm to get the sign out of his face. He thought he was going to get hit by the sign. And immediately the woman started screaming and called the police. and filed a complaint and wanted that man arrested. So here's an 85-year-old. Think about this. What if that man had fallen yesterday? That man could have easily broken a hip. Now, I got involved with this a little bit later when I realized that the police were there and they were trying to decide what to do. They did a great job managing the situation. And this individual came up to me and he said, Dave, he said, I have a heart condition. I'm getting very stressed out. I think I could literally have a heart attack here. He was never more serious in his life. That just shows the extent that these people go to try and impose their will and try and force the residents of Reading, Connecticut and Fairfield County to live with the debilitating effects of high deer population numbers. You know, and I thought about writing an article and calling these people eco-terrorists. But some friends of mine contacted me and said, you can't do that because environmentalists and conservationists are all in favor of deer reduction. So you just got to leave out the eco, and really what they are is terrorists, because they're willing to inflict physical pain on people for their cause.
Now, are you, you know, of course, in any situation you have a couple of crazies who do crazy things, and it's so, and in doing that, I think it's somewhat improper to label everybody who might be against your point of view or your stance on a particular issue, lump them together as that. I've been on the campaign trail in terms of health care. I saw some people who are from the far right, and I saw some people within the far right or so far to the right that are absolutely ridiculous. Nazi signs, racial slurs being thrown towards me during the health care debate. I wouldn't go as completely far as to call, like, for instance, the entire Tea Party a bunch of racist clowns, out-of-control nut jobs. But you have certain elements of those in there. So, I mean, are you saying that, you know, are you trying to lump these individuals out here who cause a disturbance between the whole crowd,
you know,
or how do you distinguish that?
People that resort, and I'll say violent means, those people I have a real issue with. You know, we live in a democracy. We need checks and balances. We need people with different views. We need an environment where people can express those in a sane, logical manner. That was part of what the meeting was about. It was for an open discussion so people could realize just how serious this is. I know we've got a lot to cover tonight, but it's interesting.
Go right ahead.
We had 3 people get up and talk. Well, we had, I don't know, maybe 10 people talk, but 3 people in particular, and they were people that have encountered or suffered the debilitating effects of Lyme disease or ehrlichiosis and babesiosis. So one gentleman stood up there. He said, I was about 45 years old, and I was a dentist, and I was working on a patient, and I lost the feeling in my fingertips, and I dismissed the patient, and I went to a doctor. I was diagnosed with Lyme. That was the last patient I ever treated. He went on to talk about the neurological problems he's had, the memory loss, and all the rest. His life is ruined. The next woman got up there, and she was very successful in raising funds for the Danbury Lyme Clinic. And she said, you know, our family's been turned upside down by Lyme. And she listed all the family members. One in particular was a 11-year-old son, got Lyme disease, and he's been suffering the debilitating effects ever since. And she brought up a box, and the box is about 14 inches by 14 by 14 inches. She said, this box comes once a week to my doorstep. It's $1,000 worth of medicine once a week. And it's become the modern-day milk run, and it happens throughout Fairfield County.
Absolutely. Well,
and you know, I got involved in this about a year and a half ago, and I was shocked. I said, how can people live with such a horrible situation? How can they be content in this environment? A year and a half later, I can tell you I'm thrilled to find out they're not content. They're outraged. And unfortunately, political leaders at times don't want to risk any political capital on something that could be viewed as controversial. Those that oppose this deer reduction in Fairfield County, they realize that the politicians don't have much of a spine or much resolve to take on issues that might be viewed as controversial. And so they create just enough stir to keep those people from actually doing what needs to be done. So you're right. Is everybody that opposes the view a terrorist? No. But the people that go to the extent to put at risk potentially the life risk of this individual, yeah, I consider him a terrorist. The other 2 people that spoke, the last person that spoke was a doctor that works at the Bridgeport Medical Hospital, and he works in the emergency room. And I said, can you just go over some of the effects, the serious effects of Lyme disease? And he said, well, he was very sobering. He said, well, death. And everybody kind of looked at him. Now, this is the first time I've seen the town hall in Reading packed since I've been a resident there.
Well, again, in Reading, Lyme disease is a big issue. 2 years ago, we had State Representative Jason Bartlett here, and one of the things that he talks about a lot, especially in that particular area, is Lyme disease. It's well known within that area.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this doctor went on to say, he said, you know, Lyme disease is just like syphilis. It's in the same family. And he said if that goes for 10 or 15 years undetected, your brain gets loopy, you basically become a nut and you die. So, and that's ehrlichiosis, babesiosis, these are horrible things. So anyway, we didn't want to do a show on Lyme tonight. But
no, go right ahead.
Seeing these people, you know, seeing an 85-year-old man be put at risk by these people was an outrage. And these are the same people that come to the Alliance meetings, hold up posters, yell and scream, and are just horribly disruptive. So,
well, and this goes on both sides. You got people on the extremes on both sides of the political aisle, or whatever issue it is, that do crazy things. I think in terms of issues like this, or any issue, you got to weed out the crazies, because you're going to always have crazies. You can't let the crazies take over the discussion, or make them the headline in the story. They should not be the headline of the story. The issue should be Lyme disease and what they do to take care of Lyme disease. So you brought down the DEP, and what was their feelings? What was the feedback you got from
Well, it's interesting because there's an entire industry built up around deer hunting. Now, they don't debate the science. I mean, they're big proponents of the science and the relationship between high deer densities, you know, and the incidence of Lyme disease. Just as a little bit of history, Lyme disease was first detected in 1973, and hunting was reintroduced. Legal hunting was reintroduced into Connecticut in 1975. So it's no coincidence that once they saw that they got to a level where they saw deer numbers were pretty adequate to start a hunting season again, and lo and behold, we got Lyme. So the DEP, they want to be careful not to indict themselves as being part of the cause of the problem. So they tend to say, well, you know, we've made a number of changes, we extended the hunting season, blah, blah, blah. We've done all these great things, but we kept on coming back to it and said, look, folks, deer numbers are still going up, we still got a problem, we got a long ways to go. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And to be honest, they really don't have a solution. They don't have goals, they don't have a plan, they've kind of got nothing. They turn it back over to the town and say, you got a problem. Well, that's great. You know what? Deer are more unborn deer are more protected than unborn children in this country, and that just alarms me. And when you look at the everything around deer hunting, it's economic. So the DEP collects tens of millions of dollars off of their fees. So they have pistol hunting fees and muzzle loading fees and rifle fees and shotgun fees and archery fees, and you add up all these fees. Every 30, 60-day period throughout the hunting season has another fee. So they're going to be reluctant to give that up. I mean, I think what they should do is drop all those fees. If you live in Reading, Connecticut, you shouldn't have to pay a fee. I mean, you're trying to defend your home at this point, and that's the same way with the rest of Fairfield County. So the DEP didn't have any great solutions, but the town, the people, it was highly educational. We had people from all over Fairfield County. We had Weston, Westport, Fairfield, all these towns were represented there, and they were spellbound by the speakers. So I think we can get some movement. People are going to have, politicians are going to have to step up, and we can, we have a list of, the Alliance has a list of recommendations that are proposals that we're making to the DEP to try and correct the problem. Why should there be a hunting season?
Now, what do you want to see done? You say politicians. What do you want to see done on a state capital level? What do you want to see your House of Representatives, your representatives in the House or your state senator do in regards to the issue surrounding Lyme disease?
Well,
what specifically can they do?
Yeah, you need to liberalize the laws that restrict the ability to reduce deer numbers to a meaningful level. See, right now we have about 62 to 64 deer per square mile in Fairfield County, staggering number. Towns that have gotten that deer number down to 10 to 12 deer per square mile, Lyme disease dropped by over 95%. So what we have to do is get back down to 10. That's where we used to be, 10 to 12 deer per square mile. In fact, we got down to less than that, and then they started hunting regulations because we were running out of deer.
Now, around what time did this occur?
I think that was in the 30s.
Oh.
In the last depression.
Yeah, I mean, because also, I mean, well, if we were talking about the 1930s to like now, you would admit, or you would concede also that development had a lot to do with it, because once you develop, you got the wildlife that are like, hey, where are we going to go? They have to go somewhere. So if you keep developing and developing, especially in this area right here, I can tell you, for instance, Danbury's been developed heavily, and wildlife have to go somewhere, especially if you're not going to kill them.
Yeah.
So you have no choice. Next thing you know, they're in your backyard, whereas 30 or 40 years ago, they weren't in your backyard.
Right. Right, and you think about all the vegetation. I mean, it's like a great vegetable salad out there for these deer.
Right.
They come right around your houses. They love your rhododendrons and all the rest, which gets me to another point that people don't even think about. So we're reduced to spraying our yards. So you have a spray that's, most yard sprays are permethrin based, and that kills, it's like dropping napalm on a yard. And it kills everything. It kills your honeybees. It kills every insect in your yard. And it's highly toxic to aquatic life. There's clearly going to be runoff. We have wetlands all over.
Right.
So what do you think the cumulative effects are of permethrin? It can't be good. Now, I'm not a scientist. This is just common sense. The other thing is they have, most of your nurseries around here have a spray. They spray on these plants. And they like to tell you, oh, it's an egg-based product. Make it sound very organic and nice. The reality is the active ingredient is Thyrum. If you get on Google and look up Thyrum, you're going to find a product that you won't want on your property. And you're sprayed a couple times a year. It has to have a cumulative effect. So I'd encourage people to do their own research and say, hey, do we really want that on our property?
So look, in terms of, let's go back to the political-wise. I'm not quite sure your state senator in that particular area. I know State Rep Jason Bartlett is one of them. It might be more, I don't know. Have the candidates for the office addressed deer population or the issues with Lyme disease as part of their campaign stomp?
I was thrilled to see Tony Boucher and John Hartwell there. And John Shaban, who was on our program a few weeks ago, he was also there. And getting back to your question, what specifically can be done, there's a Public Act 19302 that basically, well, in its current form, if you are a non-for-profit organization, landowner, if you are a town land or a homeowners association, under Public Act 19302, you can get a special DEP permit that will allow for serious deer reduction. It allows for harvesting deer at night. It allows for no setback restrictions. But to qualify for that, the people that participate in the program have to be DEP approved. So they have to take a proficiency test, written proficiency and a shooting proficiency test, and be approved, background check, all the rest. If they allow that for private land and liberalize the application of that, you could make a serious dent in the deer numbers. The other thing is right now a lot of your hunters can only hunt on Saturdays because they can't hunt during the week because they work. Allowing Sunday hunting would increase the amount of time that a hunter could spend in the woods, and that's been proposed for the legislature for years. But
is there any reason why this is being blocked, or what's the opposition towards Sunday hunting? I mean, look, again, I'm a big fan of drinking on Sunday. I like going out to the liquor store and pick my stuff up, but because of the blue laws, we can't even do that here. So.
Yeah, I can't answer that. One person said the wives always oppose it, and I don't know if that's the case or not. I know the people that are opposed to hunting just view that as a great restriction, and why give in on anything?
Right. Again, it's just, I think it's another one of these Puritan blue laws that don't make any sense. Been on the table, been on the book since the Mayflower or whatever. I mean, nobody can explain to me why I cannot buy or purchase a beverage at a liquor store on a Sunday when all our tax money is going straight over to New York. I'm sure it's somewhat similar with the deer thing. I don't understand why you can't hunt on Sunday. I haven't heard of a rationale or a reason why you can't do something like that. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I don't think it does either. The other thing that we would propose, and these are easy changes,
right?
Allowing an existing public act to be approved for private land. That should be easy. The other thing is why not? Right now, the archery season starts on September 15th, and the rifle on November 18th. Why not start the rifle season the same day as archery? It's 10 times more effective. You're in the trees while there are still leaves on the trees, and the deer aren't used to getting chased and all the rest. I mean, you're much more effective if you started rifle early in the season.
Now, look, we're based here. Well, this show is broadcast here in Danbury, so you're dealing with, like, you know, Danbury, Bessel, Richfield.
Right,
People are concerned about that. So if people want to learn more information about what you're doing in terms of the deer population, can they go to somewhere on the internet? Can they email you, find more information? Maybe want to get involved, learn more about the meetings that are happening with the DEP.
Yeah, there's a website called, it's represented by the Deer Management Alliance of Fairfield County, and it's deeralliance.com.
Deeralliance.com.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to go there. And, you know, your town leaders need to hear from you. You need to contact your selectmen, contact your mayors, talk to your conservation group, talk to town planning, go to town planning meetings. You got to get involved.
Yeah.
You know, people aren't going to do this. I mean, they may do it for you, but I'll also tell you, if the DEP gets involved, it's going to be a lot more expensive than if we take care of it ourselves.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's something to think about.
No, it's good because, again, look, to get Lyme disease, to get one deer tick on you, your life has changed just like that, and it's changed for the worse. I mean, my friend had just one side of his body was just like paralyzed for a long period of time. He's still not the same right now. He's probably like about 85 to 90% of what he was, but it took that was like 7 years of like going through basically hell. And people don't take it seriously until it affects their family, and then next thing you know, they're big time advocates for it. So no, it's something to keep on top of.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. Can we switch gears for just a second?
Yeah, let's switch it real quick, and then we'll...
A little bit on the economy real quick?
A little bit on it. Well, let's do this. Let's do this because I want to jump in and get a little bit of this debate stuff in there because we're running on almost on a half an hour point here. Again, what we did a couple of weeks ago is we were going to run some video footage from the debates that have been happening in this area. Specifically, since we had John Hartwell and Tony Boucher up here on this very stage talking about where they stand at on certain issues, I thought it would be nice to see them go head to head and see how they react towards each other when speaking about the issues. Because, again, it's one thing to hear somebody get up here and do a stump speech, which personally I can't stand, because 9 times out of 10 they'll either filibuster the entire segment or you can't get an honest answer out of them, especially when you go back and look at their record. But it's always cool to see people go head-to-head in honest debate. And the League of Women Voters are a great organization. They do a lot of great debates in this area. They allowed me to videotape their particular meeting that they had in Richfield a few weeks ago. Dave, if you are in the back, I'm sure I have it queued up already. We're going to show you some segments of this debate. You can see the entire debate from beginning to end up on the website, as well as on the Hat City blog website. I'll make that very, very easy and available for you people to look at. Email it to your friends because, again, it's very important. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or unaffiliated. All I want is a well-educated, knowledgeable voter. When you walk in there, you should know exactly who you are voting for and where they stand at on the issue. And a debate is a great way to find out where these people stand at. So, Dave, if you have that video queued up for me, you can just hit the play button, please.
Let's go to the videotape.
Let's go to the videotape.
It is with great pleasure and honor to present Richfield's debate for the 26th State Senatorial District and the 111th State House District with Tony Boucher and John Hartwell. And John Fry and Joseph Heyman. I would also like to thank the Playhouse for hosting our debate, our wonderful volunteers from question screeners, greeters, setup and breakdown to our timers. I would like to do a special thank you to Marilyn Carroll and Kitty Fisher, our voter service chairs, for doing such a wonderful job of putting the debate together. And of course, a special thank you to our candidates and our senator and our House rep. Now I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening, Jean Rabineau. She is a 20-plus year league member with extensive experience in moderating debates all across the state. She is a member of the steering committee of the League of Women Voters of the Bridgeport area, where she served as membership chair, secretary, vice president, and president. She is the administrator for the League of Women Voters Connecticut and the League of Women Voters Connecticut Education Fund. has served as an election moderator in Trumbull for more than 12 years, and is an attorney in private practice with the firm of McMillan and Rabineau in Trumbull. As a volunteer, she serves on the board of the Friends of the Trumbull Library and is a member and former managing director of the Trumbull Historical Society. She has been certified by Special Olympics Connecticut as a bowling coach and coaches Trumbull Special Olympics bowling and swim teams. She was born in Washington, D.C., raised in Maryland, attended college in Illinois and law school in New Haven, and has lived in Trumbull for the last 32 years. Please help me in welcoming our moderator for the evening, Jean Rabineau.
Thank you. Before we go over the rules of the debate, I have one request. If you've got a pager or cell phone, turn it off now, please, because this is being taped, and you would be amazed at how well that picks up on the tape and drowns out the questions and answers. Many of you have seen debates in Ridgefield before. You know that we have a very interesting format. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer each question. And when all the candidates have answered a particular question, they are each given 30 seconds to rebut. However, each candidate also has a bank of time that he or she can go into at will. So if the candidate feels that an answer or a rebuttal needs a little bit more time, they can extend until their 10-minute time bank has been used up. At that point, when the timer's watch goes off, time is called. We have tossed for order of response and also later for the order of close. So the first question, and I'm going to start on the Senate side, we'll go to Mr. Hartwell first, then to Ms. Boucher, then we'll switch to the other side where it will go to Mr. Heyman and then Mr. Fry. And the first question is from the League. Connecticut is facing the prospect of unprecedented budget deficits. What specific steps would you take to increase state revenues? What cuts in state spending would you recommend?
Well, thank you very much, Tim, for this. To the League of Ridgefield, I want to thank you very much for having this evening. I've been a League member.
The microphone, please.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry. I just want people to know that I am a League member myself and then can join the League of Women Voters. I didn't change the name to change the rules. My mother was a League member all of her life, and it's a terrific organization, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here. We have a $3.3 billion gap that's coming up in the next budget. And there are really only three options available for what we want to do. We can either cut spending, raise revenues, or borrow some more money. None of these things are optimal, and all of them, in fact, are painful. So the first thing I want to say is that we're all in this together. We're a community, and we need to take a fresh look at what we do in government. We have to have an honest conversation about how much government we want and how we're going to pay for it. And I think that that's a conversation that we have to have together. We need to do things differently in state government, and the choice here is clear. I've spent my life in business as a consultant solving problems, and I look at things differently, and I come to solutions. I help people solve their problems and come to new ideas. And what I'm not is a politician. I haven't been in the state legislature, so I can come at this with a fresh point of view. There are things that we can do to save money. We can reorganize the government. We can increase efficiency. For example, there's a commission out there that met last year. It was called the Commission on Enhancing Agency Outcomes, a horrible name for it. They said that there was, for example, $900 million on the table if we simply reversed the use of long-term nursing care and did more nursing in your home. So that's one idea that we would have for decreasing the cost of government. There are many more.
Thank you. As Connecticut is a part-time legislature, and it's called a citizen legislature, many of us have real-world jobs. And in my real-world job, I travel all over the country, Canada and Puerto Rico. visiting various large businesses and small ones and helping them manage their financial resources. So I know what's going on in the rest of the world. It gives you an advantage, especially since I know a chief economist, and it gives you an advantage to be able to bring that real world experience, and I have done that in my first 2 years in the Senate, that you were trusting enough to vote me in 2008. As a member of the Finance Committee, where the taxing occurs, we were able to prevent a few extra taxes to be had, because in closing this deficit, instead of addressing the biggest fraud the state has, which is the size of its state government, the cost of state government, which has increased, by the way, 149% since 1991 when we enacted the state income tax. They've literally kicked the can down the road and doing responsible things. But you wanted some real details. What we need to do to close that deficit is to enforce the constitutional spending cap, which has not been enforced. We need to reduce or eliminate $185 million in scheduled salary increases to state employees. We need to reduce the pay of elected officials and agency heads by 10%. I took a voluntary one in the small stipend I get because I have to make a living in my real job. We can also increase co-pays for legislative and staff. We can change state employee pensions to defined contribution plans. And we can certainly eliminate some of the 213 state boards and commissions, which have a lot of duplication and lack some efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to the other side. Mr. Hammond?
Do I get 30 seconds?
After all four. I'll do the votes.
Being born and raised in Danbury with a family of 2 older sisters, and having a slight speech impediment, I just want to tell the audience that I often repeat myself because I thought that I wasn't listened to as a kid, and I sometimes sound strident, and that's part of the speech impediment that I had, which I'm not really strident. In 1991, I fought not to have the state income tax. I wrote letters to the editor. I did everything I could do not to have it, not for theoretical reasons, because my fear was what would happen has happened. And that is, we've given the state more power to raise monies. We went from number 18 in per capita to taxes to the government to number 5 between 1991 and 1992. We now rank number 3. So I'm upset with the state income tax, and I feel that has caused this situation that we're in now. What would I do to make things better? It's been somewhat upsetting that what's been happening in Hartford is to raise money. They've raided the pension fund. They've taken the gas tax, which should be for the infrastructure of our state. They've raided the gas tax. They've taken the rainy day fund and used that. And as I mentioned, every fear that I had about the state income tax has come true. And the last point is, as a city planner in Westchester County, I used to work with the League of Women Voters in setting up meetings for master plans and so forth. And it's a real pleasure that the League is hosting this tonight. But also, I just want to thank Maureen Bartlett, Dave Goldenberg, and Charles Primiano. Without them, I wouldn't be here tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I primarily agree with Joseph. In 1991, when the state income tax was being considered, I was 29 years old, and I arranged to rent 2 buses from Richfield to bring out 70 Richfielders to attend the rally at the on the grounds of the Capitol, which had between 60,000 and 80,000 people there. There's no surprise that we're in the situation we're in today. We predicted it, that we've got such huge structural holes in our deficit, which is the reason why I didn't go for it, as neither did Tony. We raided the rainy day fund, as Joseph mentioned. We borrowed $1 billion. We relied on stimulus money that we know is not going to be there in the future. We tried to correct that in the budget process. We tried to cut pay to elected officials. So the Democrats didn't agree to that. We tried to end longevity pay. It was voted no. We tried to roll back spending to 2008 levels. The state wasn't that bad in 2008, but that was turned down. We tried to consolidate state agencies. We tried to eliminate travel reimbursement. As far as going forward, what can we do? I think the last thing we need to do is look at revenue. This isn't time to raise taxes. I think we need to create a new tier for pension for employees for pensions. The one we have now is extremely generous, and unfortunately we can't unilaterally change that. It's a contract. Now I can't read my own writing. I had something there. I had something very good, actually. We could change the pension, I think raise the retirement age of state employees. We can change the pension that is currently based on earned income. It should be on stated income. So in other words, your overtime doesn't count the last 3 years, well, oftentimes they boost up. And one other thing, when I was a freshman, I was approached to help Boys and Girls Clubs get some money. There are 14 Boys and Girls Clubs in the state. I'm going to use a little extra time for this is important, that's germane. I was a freshman, they wanted a Republican to help get the support because there was strong Democratic support for it. And the idea was to, really, it was sold to me as kind of a 1 or 2 shot year boost to the Boys and Girls Clubs, the 14 of them in the state, to increase opportunity. Well, we were able to do that. We were successful in getting that in the budget. Much to Bryce's surprise, 4 years later, the Boys and Girls Clubs were still getting that money, even though it was meant to be in only one budget cycle. That's the problem with the state budget. Once something is in there, it's in there for a very long time. And there's really no reason for that. It ought to be reevaluated every year.
We now get to rebuttals.
All right, well, look, that is the debate between, that was a piece of the debate between John Hartwell and State Senator Tony Boucher, and also John Fry, who is running against, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, the Democrat's name escapes me, but he's a Richfield resident. Look, you can see the entire debate online at the Hat City Blog website, www.hatcityblog.com. We'll also have it on the show website as well. And again, feel free to watch this stuff. Sometimes it's a little boring, but look, you know, politics is boring most of the time anyway, but they're dealing with your money, man. I mean, when you pay your property taxes, these guys have their hands, they control that cash, and that's a lot of cash. And you want to make sure that your cash is being well spent up there. So get informed.
Al, we have another thing in common. I have a hard time remembering Democrats' names, too. Anyway, so you were there for the entire debate.
Yeah.
And if you were going to boil it down between the key areas that differentiate between these two candidates, what would you say?
I would say in terms of the state Senate race, because again we had Hartwell and we had Boucher here, so I'm going to try to stay with those two. I think they differ in the way they want to approach dealing with the deficit, dealing with spending. Hartwell actually came out with a commercial, a TV ad today, speaking of the hypocrisy of State Senator Boucher. On one side, she says she wants to cut spending all the time, but on the other side, she praises all the money that comes back to the area in terms of projects that some people in some other districts might say was wasteful spending. So I think do
you think is that a fair criticism of his?
I think it's a completely fair. I think if you, for instance, State Senator Mike McLaughlin this week, or maybe it was last week, State Senator McLaughlin, one of his big things is that he's always criticizing, 100% criticizing more than anything else. He doesn't, in my opinion, he doesn't do anything positive, but he does a lot of criticisms, but no proactive stuff. He's always criticizing state government for spending, out of control bonding, out of control spending, out of control runaway spending that's run amok. We must cut. We must stop all this spending. He was the first person, almost tripped and get in front of the microphone this week, in which I guess he had his hand in part of securing $650,000 for the purchase of $1.6 million in open space. Now, look, I'm a big fan of open space. We just sat here and talked about deer population, and you know, open space is another way we can stop deer from going all over the place. But in this current economic climate, especially when you're out there saying one thing about, you know, government spending, running amok, too much bonding, too much this, too much that, you can't turn around on the other side and just have your hand out and just take $650,000 from the state for something that has nothing to do with economic development or stimulating the economy.
Well, that's kind of the Ron Paul approach. Vote against all spending, but if the money is going to be spent, get all you can. Personally, I don't have a big problem with that, because why should you put the people in your district at a disadvantage by saying they're going to arbitrarily cut and sacrifice if nobody else is? Either we all do it or nobody does it.
Well, then again, how can you go out there and say that you're for cutting, but again, you have your hand out, taking $650,000 for something that has nothing to do with economic development? And again, it comes down to principles. If you're going to say something, you got to back it up. You can't say something and do something that's completely contrary than what you've been preaching on the campaign trail. Again, Mr. McLaughlin, I went to this debate, this forum that happened in front of the realtors. Realtors, one of the big things they want to talk about immediately is the conveyance tax. How do you feel about the conveyance tax? Because realtors are completely against extending the conveyance tax, where most municipalities are for extending it, because if you get rid of it, it's another revenue stream that's gone for them. They're very limited in their revenue streams besides raising fees or raising your local local property tax. State Senator McLaughlin got up there and said, you know, hey, I am against it, and I am all for killing that thing and letting it sunset go away. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait a second. I know you specifically voted in favor of extending the thing up there at the state capitol during the last session. But so again, it's just that, you know, you can't say one thing and don't back it up with action.
So don't you think, though, that John Hartwell is much more willing to run out and raise taxes to balance the budget than he is to cut expenses?
I don't know. We had him here several weeks ago,
that was the impression I got.
And you had an opportunity to address him and talk to him, and as well as Marty, and you guys came with a lot of points from your ideologue. And I think he was very effective in terms of explaining his point of view and explaining where he stood on a lot of the issues. Viewers of the show, you'd be more than happy if you want to watch that show. It's up on the website. It's up on YouTube for you to watch. I don't want to put words in Mr. Hartwell's mouth in terms of how he would address certain issues, but I think he carefully articulated where he stood at on the issues, and as well as talked about issues like the stimulus package, explained that it's not all just, you know, giveaways and stuff towards the government. It had a lot to do with tax breaks as well. I think he articulated his case as good as possible, and we at least were able to engage him in questions, and he was able to respond to it, unlike State Senator Boucher, who was more into filibustering and not giving us a real opportunity, in my opinion, to talk to her about a lot of specific topics, especially about her record up there at the Capitol.
Well, I tell every one of the politicians that are running for office that if you run on a platform of, I can get along with the opposition, I don't want to vote for you, because every time they get along with the opposition, it costs me money. My taxes go up, expenses go up, and people are just irresponsible with money. And I'll give you an example of that.
Right.
You know, there was a report that came out this past week talking about the fraud associated with first-time homebuyer credits, and that the total cost to the taxpayer is about $15 billion. And a large percentage of that was fraud and waste. You had people claiming that they had bought homes and they never bought homes. You had about 17,000 or 19,000 people that claimed the tax credit, or excuse me, 74,000 who claimed the tax credit that never bought a home. That's a lot. You know, he had $500 million in claims for people that had already bought homes, and they still claimed a first. So there's fraud there. There's, you know, right now you can get subsidies for putting in energy efficient, you know, heating and air conditioning systems. For example, a geothermal heating system for a house, you know, a large house, can cost $60,000. The homeowner, he can claim $100,000 on his taxes. He's not going to get caught doing that. I can't imagine how I mean, he may.
I mean, in terms of the IRS?
Well, yeah. The chances of being audited are less than 1%.
I think in terms, if you're going to talk about the IRS and auditing and fraud, everybody gets away with fraud because everybody thinks they can get away with it. So
but
there's less fraud in terms of the IRS. We can go on and on and on, unless something you do so outrageous, especially if you have a business or something, you do something outrageous, it might signal off something. But in terms of taxes and people getting away with not paying taxes, massive fraud all around the board in every area that we can talk about.
But in particular, at any time the government gets involved, you have massive fraud. The second the checkbook comes out, everybody lines up for a piece of it. I'll give you another example of it. You know, Freddie and Fannie were at the epicenter of this whole financial crisis. Lo and behold, when it came time to, you know, to control TARP funds, guess who got control of the kitty? Freddie and Fannie. They were controlling the kitty on allocating TARP funds. And guess what? No sooner did they start getting, they got several $100 million in revenue from it. Guess what? They started contributing to candidates again. What a circular flow of money.
Well, I tell you, in terms of contributing towards candidates, again, we can look back at the Citizens United United States Supreme Court decision that allowed companies to say, hey, a company has the freedom to have the First Amendment rights, which allowed them to do stuff on on scales that we've never seen before.
But don't people make up a corporation? Isn't a corporation, in other words, the United Auto Workers Union is one of the biggest contributors to campaigns ever.
Well,
and nobody objects to the United Auto Workers contributing money to campaigns.
This is a huge difference. The Supreme Court decision is a lot different. It has allowed corporations, well, groups such as the American Action Network to be in existence, in which you have complete anonymous donations of undisclosed amount of money, unlimited amount of money that's undisclosed anonymously to do crazy ads, such as the ones that we see in the 4th and the 5th District, where they're accusing Congressman Jim Himes and Congressman Chris Murphy of signing legislation that will allow, let's say, Viagra to sex offenders, or give health care to undocumented immigrants. Things that are just like so outrageous that it doesn't pass the smell test. But of course, we don't know who the donors are because they can do this stuff anonymously. And that's where I have a huge problem with.
But a lot of the money that poured into the Obama campaign, though, was from foreign and anonymous donors.
Citizens United, the Supreme Court decision happened under the current administration. It didn't happen during the campaign of Obama.
During the administration, during Obama's campaign, he was taking campaign contributions from credit cards that did not trace the origin of that money. I mean, that money was flown in from around the world, and it wasn't being tracked.
Now look.
So it's disingenuous for him to come out and now attack the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and say, you're taking in foreign money.
Wait a second now. Look, now this show is put up on YouTube every week, and you know I like to go back and retread this stuff.
I count on that.
And research myself and come back and like, hey, Dave, wait a second here. This is a little funny what you're saying here. So I meant,
I checked my facts on that one, but please do.
Well, I'll check the facts on that, but I don't know if that's quite.
On the Marty Heiser show, you always get the truth.
You're going to get the truth, I'm telling you. In fact, I wish Marty was here. I'd love to talk to him about that little Bridgeport comment about, African Americans are so dumb that, you can buy their votes off.
He did not.
Well, that's how he alluded to. Isn't that what he alluded to?
No.
Black ministers going through Bridgeport just buying votes off of their congregation.
Oh, it's not racist.
I didn't hear him say that about people in synagogues doing that. But
that's what
black
you're using to read into the Tea Party being racist. Heaven help us all.
Well, in terms of that, I think the racial slurs and the Nazi symbols that I saw in front of my face.
Is any of that on tape? I mean, listen, these Tea Parties are happening across the country, Al.
Any of that on tape?
Yes.
Any of that on tape?
Bring it in. Al, bring it in. Put it up there, right there.
You got it.
Please. I have yet to hear one racial slur.
Really?
And listen, there was a Tea Party where a guy was holding up a Nazi sign, and the Tea Party people surrounded him, harassed him, forced him to leave. You know what? He walked across the street and walked away with all the liberals and the Democrats, got in the car and went to dinner.
Okay, now look, I'm going to tell you this right now. There was a few months ago, during the whole health care thing, especially, including last year during 9/11, which there was Tea Party rallies on 9/11, which is outrageous. I videotaped personally people coming to me giving me racial slurs to my face, saying, and go back home, stuff like that. I saw Nazi symbols. I saw the head of the Bridgeport Republican Town Committee look at the sign, and he said, I forget what the sign was, but it was really derogatory, and people were clapping, yeah, that's a great sign. That stuff has gone on. It is going on. There's plenty of video of that. And again, I'd be more than happy to splice a little YouTube thing for you and bring it back here.
You remember when the congressmen were walking up the steps of the Capitol, and they said, I've never been subjected to such racial harassment and slurs in my life. You know what? They had audio tapes, they had filming all around. I wasn't there.
Okay.
But they had audio tapes of cameras rolling on all around, and they monitored all of the tapes.
Well, I saw the particular video
our boy
footage.
Jerry Brown in California called his opponent a whore. So I mean,
look, I see Obama. I see Obama waffles. I saw Nazi symbols. I saw comparisons.
Well, he does waffle.
Oh, come on! Look. I saw comparisons of Obama to Hitler. We've seen racial epithets. There's plenty of stuff that's there. And for anybody who's in that particular movement, the Tea Party movement, whatever you want to call them, I got a more colorful name for them. But for anybody who's in that movement who wants to be taken seriously, should immediately denounce that stuff and get that stuff taken care of. Well,
they denounce it all the time.
Well, I haven't seen it. Look. Again, I was at the state capitol when this happened. I was in Bridgeport when this happened. I was in Simsbury when this happened.
How come it's not on the network news, though?
If maybe you're watching the wrong channel, I can't tell you. But I can tell you this. I post that stuff up online. It's been up online for a long period of time. And once you present this stuff to people who have that particular ideologue, they find some other excuse. Well, that wasn't quite us, or no, that's. They always find some type of excuse to get around this stuff. And I'm saying, look, it's there. It has been there. It's been there since John McCain's campaign back in '08, when people started rumbling about socialism and Obama and the black guy and all this other stuff. It's been there for a long time. There's an undertone of nasty stuff going on within the extremes element of your party.
When I see the file footage of these Tea Parties taking place across the country, I see middle America. I see people in their 50s and 60s that are completely fed up with the direction of the country, the excessive spending, the excessive taxing. You know, nobody even thinks about cutting expenses. Listen, we've got the tectonic plates of this country, the economic tectonic, are shifting right now dramatically. We've got a tidal wave coming to our doorstep. People don't even get it. And I'll tell you, and this ties into the whole topic of fraud. You know, there's a thing called a stun grenade, where you can throw a stun grenade in a building and the loud noise causes everybody to be stunned. They don't know what's happening, and then people can move in. That's what's happened in America right now. We were so stunned with this economic crisis that people are just stunned, caught like a deer in the headlights. There's the deer analogy for you. And they don't know what's happening, what's going on. And in that environment, all this fraud is being allowed to take place. The net effect of all this fraud and mismanagement and grotesque government spending will end up in undermining the dollar. And we're seeing that in gold prices today. You know what's interesting? When you look at the global, if you pull back the joystick and go back up to 30,000 feet, if you look at the world today, you see China taking an economic route towards global domination, and the U.S. still clinging to this military route. So what we spend in the military is more than all the militaries in the world combined. That's unsustainable. Meanwhile, every time I pick up the Wall Street Journal, the Investors Business Daily, I see China buying another company, buying more natural resources. They're winning. We need to wake up. We need to completely reinvent ourselves. You know, I remember a few years ago there were economists coming out saying, well, this is okay. We will be an information and service economy. Well, you know what a service and information economy is to me? That's, oh, James, can you please tell me what the time is? And James responds, thank you. That's service, or that's information. Service is, oh, James, can you please serve the dinner this evening? That's service. That's what you become reduced to. And all of a sudden, all of your wages go down to minimum wage. We got to get manufacturing again, and we got to do it now. That's the only way you win at this game.
Well, again, I mean, it's in terms of spending, I think a lot of Republicans and people to the far right are suddenly become reborn, where Democrats and moderates from at least from my recollection from 2000 up to 2006 been saying that the Bush administration was spending like a madman while giving people tax breaks with the 2001 and 2003 tax cut, while on top of increasing defense spending to an unbelievable level, on top of trying to privatize Social Security. So I mean, the wheels that were going into motion that we see right now with our current situation, which I don't think it's as bad as you're bringing it out to be, like a apocalypse now or something here. It wasn't as bad as it was back during the Obama-McCain race during the latter months. But that all just didn't happen recently.
Nope.
That didn't all happen all of a sudden.
It's been building up for 50 years. Well, it's been building up for at least the type of spending, especially when we see that the President of the United States was given a certain amount of money as a surplus from the previous administration, and he spent it just like that. And now you're in a situation where if you really want to talk about spending cuts and all this stuff, and I've seen this a lot on shows, and I meant to bring this up, there's only certain programs you have to cut. If you want to really talk about spending, you want to talk about defense or entitlement programs. And that's basically it. That's the meat and potatoes of it. So if you want to keep we're going to consolidate this stuff, or that everything people are talking about right now is small potatoes, and it's nice that now people are coming out and asking these people who are running for office, hey, what specifically are you going to do to cut this situation? Because you only got a few options. Entitlement programs, we know what we're talking about, Medicare, Social Security, the third rail, or are you going to cut defense? What are you going to do? Let's just stop all the yammering and talking. What are you going to do specifically to deal with this situation? And that's the fraud and everything else we're talking about here does not even equate close to the billions and billions and billions of dollars of the massive deficit problem we have right now. And it comes down to those few options. No, I agree 100%.
So what are we going to do? We're going to cut defense?
We're going to start by cutting defense.
We're going to deal with entitlement programs.
Listen, the Republicans or the conservatives, the right, whatever you are, have themselves backed into a corner right now because they've always been on this campaign, we need a strong defense at all costs. And it's interesting because the Republicans tried to become more Democrat and Democrats tried to become more Republicans. So the Democrats tried to appear strong on national defense and the Republicans tried to outspend the Democrats. It just doesn't work. So here's what you have. You have to cut the military. There's no reason for us to be in Afghanistan. We've killed or injured over a 250,000 Afghanis. It's a tragedy.
Again,
it'll be a scar on this country.
I have to say this again, then, because Sam Caligiuri, at a debate I was at, Chris Murphy specifically asked him, hey, look, you supported the Iraq war, you support the Afghanistan war. Iraq cost us $1 trillion. And you're talking about not increasing anything, and you're talking about cutting stuff. That means you have to cut $1 trillion to support that war. How are you going to do it? And when you start asking questions like that, you get Republicans like, something's wrong. Their mouths can't move because they can't come up with the numbers. If you're going to support a war and you want to cut stuff, Afghanistan, $1 trillion. You don't want to raise any taxes or do anything. You want to cut stuff. Cut $1 trillion out. Where are you going to find it at?
I'll tell you right now.
You got to go to entitlements.
I'll tell you right now. That
Social
war,
Security, Medicare.
That war in Afghanistan is over, and the only thing left to decide right now is the terms of withdrawal. And that is a fact. Trust me when I tell you. This past week, once again, General Petraeus came out and said they're in negotiations with the Taliban to try and come up with some type of peace agreement. That war is over. We need to get out. So I think what we need to do...
Well, even if you get out, you're still going to have troops there. We were out of Iraq. We still got 50 Dow there. It's still costing you. Look, we got out of Korea. How many troops we got there? So still...
We need to get out of Korea. We need to get out of Germany. The purpose of a military is self-defense of America. It's not the nation building. It's not to project our might around the world.
Well, you're going to have a problem when you talk about defense. And I'm just telling you, it's a third rail because especially amongst Republicans. What are you going to tell that person over in Groton? You want to cut defense? That means you're going to cut that base? You want to tell the people in Groton about that? Again, it comes down to local stuff. It's great to talk grand on a national scale, but when you talk about locally, what are you going to tell the people? Tell Janet Peckinpah that we want to cut defense and we want to cut Groton and see what happens to her votes. Gone. Virginia will come right up here immediately take that sub base. So it's a complex situation is what I'm just basically trying to get to, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of hard decisions to get this thing done. But 1 minute to go. Dave, as always, great talking to you.
Al, it's a pleasure.
Forever. Again, people, get out there and vote. Vote, 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 vote. Vote's coming up real soon. We got debates coming up on the 24th and the 25th. Look on the website for more details, or you go to Hat City Blog for more details. You can look at the debate you just saw in its entirety up on the website. Sunday, 4th Congressional District debate. Monday, 5th Congressional District debate. All free. Come on down. Watch it, and we might bring up some highlights next week, or, you never know.
Marty Heisel will be back.
Marty will be back, so look.
We always get the truth.
Time's up. This is it. Thanks a lot. Al Robinson, David Straight. This is The Big Show. Every Thursday, 9 o'clock. Fridays, 2 o'clock. And Cablevision, what time we're on?
4:30 on Wednesday. Be there, Channel 88.
There it is, man. Hey, look, thanks a lot for watching the show. I do appreciate it. Come back next week. We'll be here, and we'll find something to talk about. All right? Take care.